marriage, once you're in it, can get complicated. That's why the divorce rate is what it is because there is a certain point where the performance ends and the person shows up.
It's more than 50% now, right?
The most common window for divorce is year 1 and 2, and then year 5 and 8.
Give me 3 things that people should try to find out as early as possible.
Lights On is sponsored by BetterHelp. It's okay to struggle. Real strength comes from opening up about what you're carrying and doing something about it so you can be at your best for yourself and for the people in your life that you love. Therapy is not just about trauma. It's about learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries in your life that create new freedom. With over 35,000 therapists, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, having served over 5 million people. And it works too, with an App Store rating of 4.9 based on over 1.7 million client reviews. And it's convenient. You can join a session with a therapist at the click of a button, helping you fit therapy into your busy life. Plus, you can switch therapy and therapists at any time. As the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a variety of expertise. So talk it out with BetterHelp. So our listeners get 10% off of their first month at BetterHelp.com/lightson. That's BetterHelp.com/lightson.
Welcome back to Lights On. Laura Lentz, a.k.a. Roberto Duran, you're back with me.
Carl Lentz,
Hey, shout out to you.
a.k.a. Magnum PI.
Couldn't make me happier. Really.
What are we doing here?
50.
Some more? This is my broken elbow, but it's fine.
50th podcast.
Is it?
Yes.
Yay, look at us.
Just realized that 50.
50 of them.
Thank you for being a part of this Lights On journey. It's been awesome. I'm glad you're here. Make it better. Without you, we're not doing it. So this has been so fun, and we're gonna get right to it. The last pod we talked a lot about relational stuff, and we get floods and floods and floods of people who relate, resonate, and want more of that. And I thought it would be an easy segue from what we talked about last week. And if you haven't checked it out, definitely do it. We talk about some really good stuff in that episode. But we're going to talk about baggage, understanding the baggage that comes with the person you're building a relationship with. You might not be able to change it, but you can at least understand it better. Why did you make a sound when you talk about baggage?
Baggage, because sometimes it's, not always great baggage.
Name brand problems, perhaps. No, I think everybody is really good at performing. Everybody comes into a relationship under
When you say performing, though, can we just talk about
your
that?
best self. Your best self.
I mean, because people, there's a thing that you put out about us and performing. You did a pod on something, and there was some comments of like, he's just performing. It's just a performance. Blah, blah. He's not really blah, blah, blah with Laura. And I'm like, guys, I just think you're taking it out of context like everyone does.
What?
But performing, you're just talking about.
Oh, well, in that regard, I am performing for you. There are things that I should be performing.
Right.
Like performing is putting in work. It's producing things that you've asked to see. So on that thing, if someone's trying to criticize me, you're right. Didn't see it, and I don't. But okay, cool.
But yeah.
But in this regard, what I mean by performance, when you're on a date with somebody, they are performing.
Facts.
When you're in a marriage, either party can be in a performance at any time, and that's just part of humanity. You're not going to know the depth of somebody until there has been some time. That's why the divorce rate is what it is because there is a certain point where the performance ends and the person shows up.
It's more than 50% now, right?
I'll read the stats. I got the stats just because I wanted to be super accurate. But there comes a moment in every relationship where the performance ends and the real person shows up. And in a marriage situation, normally if you don't do some of the work that we're going to point to in this, we're going to make it so much easier for you to make better decisions when it comes to relationships, which is the joy of doing this pod. But if you don't know what you're getting into, that person that shows up after the performance subsides, it can be devastating. And we always used to make a joke, but it's true. Like, go on a date for longer than 3 hours because that's when the medication wears off. So you got to be able to at least know somebody long enough for them to be unmedicated so you can see who they are. Here are the divorce stats as we know them. The most common window for divorce is year 1 and 2, and then year 5 and 8. So the early divorce spike that we see now, it's like 20% happen within the first 5 years.
Wow.
The other spike is between years 7 and 8. I'll tell you why that is. And then beyond 10 years, if you can get beyond 10 years, it's like a very smaller chance that divorce will ever happen. And that's for better, for worse for some. But the 5 to 8 period, I think one of the reasons, one of my observations is that's when you find out, like year 1, you're gutting it out. Year 2, you're kind of like, year 3, you're like, this isn't what I signed up for.
Well, it's like reality kicks in.
Yeah, and then year 4, you're getting your bags ready, and then year 5, it's a wrap. So that first year, it's like you can slide through it. Second year, that person shows up, and you're like, I didn't know that you were like that. Third year, you realize, oh my gosh, this is way more complex than I ever thought. So I think that's something that needs to be looked at, because there's a reason for it, and maybe there's something we can do about that. We know that marriage, once you're in it, can get complicated.
Well, then how can we make it easier?
We make it easier by understanding templates and patterns. This is information gathering.
Yeah. Is there a way to do it before it gets too deep, like to the crucial point?
No, I don't think so. But I think there's enough data you can get about a person that you're about to commit your life to.
Right.
That gives you a little bit of a more secure standing in understanding who you're looking at, who you're about to get in this giant agreement with.
It's all a big risk.
Totally, 100%.
It's a risk because you really don't know who that person is.
You don't.
Until you're really in it for a while.
I like when young people say, I found my person. Did ya? They've only been alive for 22 years. They haven't found their person. It's cute. But it's the beauty, it's the mystery, it's the risk. I mean, we're Jesus people, so we don't even profess to try to be able to pull it off on our own. I don't know how people do it outside of that, but I think there are ways. There are ways to make it easier, to your question. Lights On is proud to partner with and work with God Behind Bars, which is one of my personal favorite organizations I've ever been a part of. They are powerful. Their mission is clear. They want to rebuild lives. They want to restore families, and they want to remind people that nobody is out of reach for God's love. And they specialize in going into prisons and bringing people hope and tools and love and mental health care. And the great news that God hasn't forgotten them. And it's an honor to partner with them. If that interests you at all, check them out at godbehindbars.com. They're on Instagram, and it will inspire you. So check them out today. We are pumped to partner with them here at Lights On. God Behind Bars, we love you. And I like to take people right to understanding templates and patterns. And a lot of this came from me talking to Ava. We had this long talk with my daughter. This is your first time tuning in. I got a daughter who just turned 21. And we had this really long talk about boys, men, which is more apt right now. And we talked about learning as much as you can from the information available. The hard way is learning from your own tough experiences. The easy way is to be a little bit more cluey. So I've told her, even on a college level, I broke it down and I said, here are some of the template exposers that I want you to look for in this guy. Like, does he show up to class on time? That's a template. Right. It's less about his class attendance. It's how he values time and how he values commitment. And is he dedicated to something? I don't necessarily want her dating athletes, but an athlete at least shows there's a template of something he's committed to, that he's become so proficient at that he's reached a very high level. That's a template. So we know that guy, in his spirit, in his makeup as a human being, he has seen a goal, worked towards it, and dedicated his life. There's discipline involved. How does he treat people he does not know? That's a compassion template. So it's easy. How does he treat your mom? Yeah, this dude better treat, his mom and the mom of whoever he's dating. But how does he treat the waiter? How does he treat authority? What's his go-to move when someone bucks up against what he wants? That's the kind of stuff that starts to show you the template of a guy. And I think it's good for anybody like you. And this is true, this might be a lifesaver for someone who is considering dating someone. I don't want my daughters to date or marry potential. I want them to date and marry production. Right. Potential is so cute. And production, though, that is where you want to hang your hat, because there's a lot of people, it's like, he's a good guy, he's got potential. Great. Let him produce some of that potential, and then we can start dating, because potential doesn't necessarily mean that someone's ever going to do what's in their heart. I want to see something. So you can have a lot of potential, and I just ask Ava and Charlie, just show me a little production. Like, I believe the best in everybody too, but if you bring home a guy who doesn't have $1 saved, a college credit to his name, an album that he has been on, a song that he has ever written, I'm not interested in a second date with him.
Right.
Do one of those things one time. And unfortunately, what we do sometimes is we allow our love and our whatever attraction to somebody override what can be a clear template warning. And I think it can be really, really helpful just to know your patterns, your principles, for instance. I knew before I even fell in love with you that you had some templates of consistency. Like, all I ever did was stalk you in church because I knew exactly where you'd be, when you'd be there. Mm-hmm. And I was like, that says something about her. I knew about your template for compassion because you always were helping somebody through something. Mm-hmm. Annoying people, cool people, whoever it was. And I was like, cool, I already knew that about you before I ever dated you, let alone married you.
Well, that was the same with you. Like, you had potential, but I had never, I'd never seen you speak or preach or do anything like that before we even got married. So that wasn't things that I was like looking for. Like, I want to marry a preacher or someone like that can speak like this or that. That wasn't in it. It was like you being accountable. I saw you hanging out with the men that you had in your life, like our youth pastor and our main lead pastor, and our, you had dads around you and all these different people all the time, and you're always searching for information and wanting more, teach me more, all of those types of ththings, which was a huge win for me. Like, I was like, that's what I want.
Yeah, I remember you said your dad mentioned all the jobs I had when I was in Bible college. Like, because that was a template. Like, my dad taught me you will work.
Right.
And so I ask Ava and Charlie all the time, like, what's that guy's job history? Never had a job. Okay, cool. Something to be aware of. Yeah. Because that day's going to end real quick, where he has to have his first job at 22. Okay, it's not the end of the world, but you need to know. What annoys me is when people get in a relationship and they start judging the very thing they accepted. Like, oh, my husband doesn't work hard. He wasn't working when you married him. What made you think? It's the same principle of when an NBA team will sign a dude who's fat to a huge contract, thinking that contract's going to encourage and inspire that guy to get in shape. He's just going to get fatter. This is what people do when they accept things in a relationship. Maybe by accepting me, maybe by me investing in you, you're suddenly going to change. It doesn't really work like that a lot. So it's not as hard as you think. So here are the templates that we kick this around a little bit. And we like going here. So this is for those of you that want to kind of dig into who you're with. Even right now, it's never too late to understand somebody's template. We still learn stuff about the way we were raised every day.
Oh, yeah.
And we're like, oh, that's an interesting hallmark.
We've been married for 23 years.
It's somewhere
22,
around
22 years.
I don't know. It's been so beautiful. It's a blur. I just lost count. It's not as hard as you think. For instance, here's an easy kickoff. Just work a little bit harder, or maybe even work for the first time in understanding the history of the person that you are connected to. Just knowing their history alone is like a very great indicator of what they're going to subconsciously expect. And that's what history will teach you, because a lot of marriages go wrong when there's unset expectations. And you're like, where did that come from? Like, I have a friend whose mom cooked dinner for him every single night. That was his thing. He would come home, and then he ended up having a pretty rough marriage. And one of the biggest marriage beefs was, my wife doesn't cook. And I'm like, she definitely cooks, bro. Like, what's your expectation? Well, she doesn't cook like my mom cooked. Interesting. Did you let her know before you went off on this marriage journey that your expectation was, well, I just figured she would know. How would she know? Now you run that back, and that beautiful woman sitting across from this guy, now that you use a piece of wisdom like this and you say to somebody, what's your upbringing like? Did your mom always cook? If he says yes, well, you better make sure that that's something you're comfortable with. Otherwise, you're going to get stuck with that template, and now you got some issues.
Yeah.
Lights on. is partnering with plana.org. It's a phenomenal organization that is built to empower women who have faced with all kinds of unexpected circumstances, especially when it comes to pregnancy. And they offer support, they offer tools, they offer community. And if you wanted to know how can I immediately help somebody who really needs it, check out plana.org today. We love them, you will too. And you can make a difference in the life of somebody today just by checking them out. Plana.org. We love y'all.
Give me 3 things that people should try to find out as early as possible.
3 or 4?
3 or 4 or 5.
3.
Whatever you think.
I'll give you 3, and then I'll ask you yours unless we share them. If you have to get to know somebody quickly, or want to begin that journey, go here. Number 1, ask somebody. This is irrespective of religion. How do you feel about Jesus? Great template, because right there you're going to find out who somebody is, where they're headed, what church means to them, what religion means to them. Like maybe the person says, Jesus, I'm into Muhammad. Good to know. Maybe they say, well, I'm not really into a person. I'm into the universe. Cool. Like that's why you don't say, what do you believe about God? What do you believe about religion? No, bring up the name Jesus. It's a hack because it either activates something, deadens something, or immediately reveals somebody. So that's for everybody. Find out what they believe about Jesus. That's the quickest way to get to spiritual depth. And we do this with friends who do not share our faith. Like it's my favorite thing to do is say, tell me about Jesus. Oh my gosh, the things that people have to say. But by that one question, how do you feel? How do you see Jesus? People will talk for 15 minutes and you get to find out their values, some of their worldviews, and what's deeply important to them. And it's a great conversation starter. But that to me shows the template. So now you know, and now you're not going to be wondering, this guy I'm dating, will we ever be in church together? Will he lead me in spirituality? Bill, now you're going to get a little clue.
I will say on that too, though, I mean, we met in church.
Yeah.
And our marriage wasn't perfect.
Says who?
Do you know what I mean? Like, just because they love Jesus, because I see this all the time. Like,
oh my gosh.
Yo. Yeah, if you see a guy in church, they're the ones you should marry. And it's like, is it though? Like, not necessarily. Like, everyone has secrets and lies and things that they're keeping.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's not a be all end all. Like,
it's a gateway to how they think spiritually.
Right.
So even if the guy has a great answer, Jesus is my Lord and Savior. He's my guy. Okay, cool. But
at least still gonna be things to work.
At least you know you're able to frame this. So it baffles me how people will get into deep relationships and they've never landed the spiritual plane. Mm-hmm. Like how did you not know? How did you not know that you were about to marry somebody that wanted nothing to do with the God that you profess to serve, or if you're a Scientologist and you're sitting across from somebody who is Jewish, you gotta handle that. You gotta figure it out, and that's why I always say bring up Jesus real quick, because that's the definer. Well, Jesus, I can't believe those Christians. I am cool. Now you know. Right. So it's just a great little party starter. Second one that really, really matters is how do you feel about money? Money. Okay. Wow. Why wait to get to that? Because in that moment, you can find out what they believe. You can find out limited beliefs. You can find out intuitive fences. You can find out future pressure. So if someone's response is scary, shaky, confident, whatever, now you can start digging in a little bit and you find out, cool, what was your family's?
Can you explain limiting belief?
Well, a limiting belief is like, I grew up in a family. That we barely made it. So I'm hoping to earn a living to at least have a better Christmas than I had. Cool. Now you know.
Yeah.
Like I want my template was different than yours. My financial template was one of complete freedom because I had parents that backed everything I wanted to do. Yeah. If I was passionate and I was dedicated to it, I didn't know that there was a limited amount of money. Right. I just thought parents do this. So my early induction into financial living was like, if I believe in it, I'm gonna put money into it. Like, where's the money at?
Yeah.
And you came from a different mentality where your parents were a little bit more measured with that.
Yeah.
But that came.
They were pastors too.
And
so
we've been able to take our templates on money and build our own, which is the goal. But we had to know each other's in the first place. Mm-hmm. And still, we'll meet with couples who've been married for a decade and they haven't had these conversations. Yeah. And it's like, why don't you ask your wife why she spends that money the moment it hits your account? Oh, she just doesn't care. Maybe it's not that. Maybe she grew up in a house where, man, before it was even there, it was already spoken for, so she's still recovering from that trauma, but it just gives you a lot more depth to understand, who you're dealing with, who you're looking at. I like this question too. How do you feel about kids?
Yeah, that's an important one.
Yeah. And then you just start kicking that around for a little bit and you find out some very interesting things. I mean, obviously there's a world where the guy will just play whatever foot he thinks you want him to stand on. Oh, I love kids. They're going to be great. Well, how were you raised?
Yeah. Well, one of the questions would be, how do you want to discipline your, what is your view on discipline? What is your view on raising kids? Because having kids is people think about having kids, they think about the baby stage.
Yeah.
They think, it's so fun, it's so cute, I can't wait to have a cute baby.
Yeah.
It's but that doesn't last long, because then you got to raise those little things.
Oh, I love kids. I can't wait to have a baby. You like baby pictures.
Yeah, exactly.
You can go to a little shop and get that done.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a different world. And then the other one that I love.
And on that point, though, it's important to choose a partner that what you see in them character-wise, do you want that to come out in your kids one day as well? Because those character pieces don't go away.
Yeah.
That's who you are. That's who you marry. And you're also going to raise little people that are going to have some of those. So it's it's also a really good check of do I...
Yeah. And to double down on that, I don't care about the characteristics that are not great, but I do care about then, does this person actively get involved in self-care?
Right.
Do they have a therapist? Mm-hmm. Do they have a group of people they lean on? It's one thing if a guy is a jerk, but he's like, hey, I got some issues in my life that I'm working on. Great. We're not looking for perfect people, but you need to know, is the person that you're interested in, do they already know that they need help? Because if they don't, what they're saying is they're good.
Yeah.
And then they're going to get into this relationship, even this marriage, and now them going to get help is a new thing. You want that to be the first thing.
Yeah.
We got married. We're back from our honeymoon. I got to go to my therapist because now more than ever I'm going to need it. Mm-hmm. That's the kind of language that reveals a template that you can build on.
Yeah.
This is a good one, and this is especially for Christian couples. How do you feel about sex? Mm-hmm. Why would we wait to have these conversations? Why is this taboo? So what you're looking for when you have this conversation is somebody that has a response that matches your value. Doesn't need to be intimate, doesn't need to be heavy on the details, but I like finding out. Couples that are married don't have that sentence set.
Yeah, especially from our generation and up.
Yeah.
The sex conversations don't typically happen.
No.
Even in marriage, what do you like? What's your,
Yeah.
What's your favorite position?
Right.
Not that you would do that
early,
early before you get married, but in a marriage, people don't even have those conversations because it's awkward.
Because it reveals template. So I our daughter is standing on their front foot because as a couple, we would be more on remember Meet the Fockers with Dustin Hoffman?
Yeah, you say that better than I do if I say it.
Yeah, we're not, actually go ahead and say it. It's bad.
Meet the Fockers.
Yeah, bub, it doesn't translate. Australians, it's meet the Fockers.
Fockers. I can't say it. Hey, Fockers.
There you go. In this movie, this is what I got to deal with on a daily basis with an Australian. It's a beautiful title, and now it's a curse word. She's a sex therapist, and they just talk openly and lovingly about sex.
Funny.
And then the other family is just buttoned down. They don't talk about it. They're weird about it. I like, especially if it's a woman talking to a man. You don't have to get into, but what's your upbringing when it comes to sex?
Yeah.
And what are you looking for? You're looking to see what their families talked about, what's taboo, what's not. And here's why it matters. If I told Ava this, she has a pretty solid cheat sheet, and it still doesn't work. She still has to learn the hard way. I love you, Bowie. But if you sit down, and I've taught them to ask this, what's your relationship with your dad about when it comes to talk about sex?
Porn, all of that.
So if you're across from a young man who says, I don't really talk to my dad about that stuff, there's a huge chance he's talking to club.com. Mm-hmm. You need to know that, Ava, Charlie. Y'all need to know that if a man is not getting his sexual information and education and illumination from somebody that shares your values, he's going to find it somewhere. Mm-hmm. So we see a whole generation of guys that their sex isn't talked about in the house. Where do you think they're going to find out their information?
Right.
So all of his sexual expectation appetite, desires are the fruit of pornography and TikTok and algorithms. You need to know that.
Yeah.
Because your template is not that. Sex means this to you. It means this to our family. We talk about it in this way. So these are things that, and let's just say if you're listening to this right now, you're like, I didn't do any of this, and I'm in a crappy situation. Hey, it is never too late to start this. In fact, it's actually a perfect time. Wherever you're at is the perfect time to start having some of these conversations. But also, it really starts to dismantle a lot of frustration. Just a conversation like, man, I didn't know that. It's like, hey, I've never really talked about this because I went through this in my household and it made me feel weird. And next thing you know, you have a discussion. You got a bridge. So I like that. This leads to the number one question we get, which is a sign of the times. Like, what if I find out that my spouse has a deeper issue like narcissism? What do I do now? How often do you get that?
A lot.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of a buzzword right now.
Yes, narcissism. Yeah.
That person's a narcissist. This is a narcissist. Everyone's a narcissist. It's like, maybe they're just selfish. Like, because some of these traits, which we'll probably go into, but
we will. I'm going to dip into
there's traits
it. Yeah.
that you can pick up, and there are things that you can,
Yeah, well, you can pick apart. So I think, like, how do I know if I'm married to a narcissist?
You'll know before you get married.
Well, that's the problem.
Hopefully.
Apparently, no one can figure this out. So it's very, very important. So what you said is very true. So anything in culture that starts great ends up sucking. So the narcissism revelation, where everyone just started accusing everybody of being a narcissist. It's like, hey, you're ruining the beauty of what a discovery can be about an actual disorder. And typically it's women saying this to men. Big news flash. There are some narcissistic, tricky women out
moms,
there. Oh my
so
gosh.
many narcissistic moms.
But how this became a man, how this became a man thing is always funny to me. Like I see some of these raging folks, online talking about narcissism. I'm like, hey, a mirror might be your best friend right now, because little do you know, if you spot it, there's a good chance you got it. That's an old rehab phrase. So I think let's do a few disclaimers about narcissism. And it's funny how much people will talk about this. And this is helpful because narcissism is a mental disorder. It's a very serious thing. It has become trendy to weaponize this word by untrained and hurt people. And they just throw it at anybody they don't like. It's damaging and it's dangerous and it's stupid. We don't do this with other mental disorders. Like, no one's like, that guy over there is a schizophrenic.
Right.
That guy over there, you're bipolar. Like, we would consider that to be, but narcissism, people will throw that at people, not understanding you're accusing someone of having a really, really deep and layered and complex mental disorder.
Right.
You just got to be careful. Yeah, I was a part of that whole narcissistic pigeonhole where anybody, and it's not unreasonable for people to try to make these links because the truth is there are symptoms and things that are very close, narcissistic traits, actions that people can do. It's a world of a difference between, if you've ever been around a real narcissist, which we have, it's all encompassing. It's everything. So I think there is not everybody who's selfish is a narcissist. Not everybody who disagrees with you is a narcissist. Not everybody who won't agree with exactly your story the way you tell it is a narcissist. Not every pastor that tells you, sorry, you can't sing, you're not going to be on the worship team, you're not a victim of narcissism. This stuff has to be said, because before you flirt with this label, make sure you know what you're talking about. And it's worth talking about, because if you're in a serious relationship with somebody that does have this disorder, you are in trouble.
Yeah. Well, because a true narcissist it's not curable. It's what they say, right?
I mean,
am I wrong?
That's what most clinical psychologists would point to. I've seen that be challenged by people that have overcome some of that. But by and large, it's just something that needs to be known. And I've met I had a guy in rehab who was like, I am a narcissist, and I want to learn how to manage my life better with this disorder. It is important enough that when you have a marriage breakdown, if some of these things, even if there's a little bit of smoke, you might want to check if there's fire. And because I was hit with that label by random people that started making links. I was open to sitting in front of that going, all right, like if this is a real thing for me, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
And what Alex told me and 3 other therapists were like, typically a red flag that you're not a narcissist is when you're willing to be one.
Asked, yeah.
So that's a part of it. But I know, did you have to, what was that like for you trying to figure out, because at that time when our marriage blew up, that was a word thrown around everywhere, not just at me, but it was a big deal.
It was a big word being thrown around, and you at the time were in rehab, and I was like, is he? Like, I don't know. And like, so I had to do my own research, and I asked, I called
people.
Many people. I called all the therapists. I called the rehab and was like, can you explain to me what this word is? And I did my own research on it and asked the questions. And the explanations I got were great. And they helped me so much because I was like, okay, I can check that off. I can check those off the list.
He might be a jerk.
Yeah.
But at least he's not a narcissist.
But you could maybe talk about it. Addiction comes very close to narcissistic traits.
Absolutely.
Why is that?
Well, an addict cares about themselves above everything else. Now, when you're in your addiction, you don't see it like that. You're a victim. But why it's so closely linked is because a narcissist is ultimately always about their world, their life, their means to an end.
It's selfish.
Even if it looks like a help, it ends up being a hook. Even if it looks like a bridge, ends up being bondage somewhere, somehow. And in an addict, it's very similar, because it's like you're not seeing it like this, but you're willing to put your family in the gutter, to break every vow you had. You're willing to betray the trust of however many people in your world for that. That's selfish. It's horrible. It's toxic. It's not necessarily narcissistic.
Yeah.
So there are things that float around it, and it's freeing for people to either be confirmed or to not confirm it. Then you know how to build. But if you're hearing what we're about to do is just give you the easiest checklist ever to clear this up. Because if I see one more stupid video by an untrained person talking about this, it just is like, it's not fair. Because then you got people that are pointing at each other going, you're a narcissist. No, you're a narcissist. It's like, hey, I know that word's going to get your algorithm jumping. Maybe do some digging before you get into it. So this is it's the worst thing you can do to use as an insult. It doesn't help anybody. So go slow, by the way. If you suspect that somebody that you love, maybe you're married to them, maybe someone in your world, if you suspect that narcissism is in play, go slow. They're not going anywhere. They're going to reveal themselves.
Right.
But by immediately casting that kind of label, it definitely heightens some of the intensity of what can be recovery, a bridge, a help. But I did my due diligence on this so we can bring some light to some of the confusion. And some of these stats, these are based on clinical research, psychological literature, experiential reporting from people that actually have survived this, therapists that walked through this. I even went the extra mile and called my therapist, and I just said, hey, help me frame this for people because it's ridiculous. She talks to narcissists all day. She that's her full-time job, is basically talking to either men that know they're narcissist or they don't know, or the wives that are. So she's my favorite go-to on this. And here are, if you are wondering, so if you have accused your husband of this, or your wife, or you've thrown this at somebody, we're going to give you really easy 3 biggest signs that you are, in fact, in the area of being married to a narcissist. Number 1, constant emotional manipulation and gaslighting. So what this looks like is your reality is always questioned. Didn't really happen. You're oversensitive. You're imagining things. You're crazy. Healthy is disagreeing with what somebody has said. Toxic is somebody that's always attacking the person. And this is a beautiful trait of a narcissist. Constant. No matter what you bring, it's constant. Wasn't that bad? You're wrong.
Yeah. Oh, you want feedback from me on that one?
Perhaps. Otherwise, I will just keep cooking it. But,
keep cooking.
I
feel like that one's very self-explanatory.
But
like
if you're
getting emotionally abused,
if you feel like you are constantly on eggshells, Like every day you're on a tryout, that's an issue. And after a while, and this is the demonic, nefarious part of narcissism, where you'll have a narcissistic man push down a woman so much that she doesn't talk. And then you get on her about not talking.
Yeah.
That's a dead double flag red giveaway. Have you ever asked the question why your wife never talks?
Well, she's
Have you ever asked the question why she didn't ever want to just open up her heart? Or why my wife never tells me how she feels. Why might that be? Because every time she does, you tell her that's not what she feels.
Right. You don't validate her feelings.
That's something that I think any man that's not careful, you can dip into that part of this type of narcissistic trait, which is when someone shares their feelings, you try to spin their feelings. It's pretty rough. When your partner rewrites events, it minimizes your version. That's typically something you got to keep your eye on. This is why it matters so much on this one. The psychological tactic of gaslighting, it erodes somebody's confidence and autonomy, and it leaves you dependent on that narcissist for truth and validation. And this goes directly into the church wheelhouse. So let's go out of marriage for a second. When you see narcissism in church leadership, it's when a leader has replaced the voice of God for this person. I'm talking to a guy right now who I love a lot, and he's coming out of the grip of a heavy-handed pastor who he doesn't know how to pray. He doesn't know how to hear God for himself. He doesn't know what's right or wrong because this person invaded their space so much where his voice became the voice.
Wow.
And if you're in a church where a pastor ever puts himself in that position, that's why that was always a laughable criticism for our church, because it was like, I can't be clear. I get up and say, go home and read your own Bible, do your own work, do your own research. I am a human being up here communicating truth. So that was always an easy, like these people are ridiculous when they say stuff like that. But in a church context, you want to be around leaders that teach you, I don't know, this is what I think, but you have to make your call. What's God saying to you? That's a big deal. The thing you hate is suddenly the thing you need. That's a sign of you're in a narcissistic, toxic relationship. The thing you hate, it becomes the thing that you kind of crave now. It's like you haven't been criticized in a while. I gotta get criticized. I haven't felt shame in a while. I talked to a guy who's also coming out of some narcissistic abuse situations, and he was like, I just feel bad today because I don't feel bad about a lot.
Wow.
I said, I'm sorry, brother, that you've been through that. What if it's okay to just feel great today? That is like a beautiful moment to realize. And if you're in that type of relationship, there's definitely hope for you. You can get out of it, but it's a big deal. Number two is lack of empathy. Lack of empathy and one-sidedness in the relationship. Really, we don't need to say much more about that, but when your needs are ignored, your accomplishments are minimized, the relationship always revolves around your partner's needs and moods. This is getting into the danger zone.
Yeah.
And again, this isn't like a selfish moment. All of us have had selfish moments. All of us can be guilty of this. But we're talking about a constant template of when was the last time you did something that you wanted to do? When was the last time you did something that had your favorite thing in mind? Why this matters is because a true narcissist has a very limited capacity for empathy. And if you view a relationship through a lens of self-enhancement and not mutual care, you're dead.
Yeah.
And so this is a bigger deal than people think. Like empathy gets a bad rap right now. People talk about empathy being a weak thing. And it's like, okay, good luck being married to somebody that refuses to even dip into the empathetic role of what might it be like from your shoes.
Well, a narcissist has not even a lick of
Can't
it.
even
They
fake it.
can't even fake. Like they can't pull out any emotion.
We had an experience together with a narcissist, and it went like this. I shared how I felt, and the person looked back at me and went, see what you always do? I remember you just started to cry. I think you left.
Yeah,
I remember sitting there, and I was like, I barely finished expressing what I think I'm feeling, and the immediate spin was, look at you.
Yeah.
Look at you doing it again. Look at you doing it again. And I remember thinking, okay, I wonder how much that that happens to people. Have I ever been guilty of that? It's because it's a constant me, 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 me. As soon as you're done talking,
they're thinking about themselves.
Let me spin this. Look at what you're doing to me. Look at the position you're putting me in. You tell me you feel unsafe? Look at what I have to do now. It's like, I didn't know that I was, we had a moment months ago where I had to catch myself because you were expressing your need, and I immediately made it about me, and I realized that's a red flag on every front. Let me pull all that back.
Yeah.
And then number 3, this is the cycle. It's that they build you up, tear you down. Build you up, tear you down.
The love bombers.
The love bombers.
Right?
Say it again, love. The love bomber.
The love bomber.
It's
a real thing.
They build you up. It's an idealization of a person, followed by a devaluation of the person. So you are the best, you are the hottest, you are the coolest thing cooking.
And this one usually starts at the very beginning of a relationship.
And they got you.
So they will just put on all the stops, bells, whistles, everything. Take you with here, there, everywhere, spending, love bombing you constantly, and you get overwhelmed with it all because it's like, oh my gosh, this is love, this is real love. And then they take it away.
Yeah, and they twist it.
It becomes a cycle.
It looks like you were once adored, and now you're constantly torn apart. Showered. It started with compliments, flowers, roses, extra mile, and then it seems like that's never happened again. You got hustled. You got love bombed, and as easy as it is to talk about here, walking through people who are in the middle of a love bomb, they're so good. Like, who doesn't love a love bomb?
Right.
It's like, this guy has abused me verbally, he's cheated on me, and he's been cruel to me, but this watch is amazing. It's like, I got it. I relate. You got to be able to catch that, because if all it does is take a watch, and we're seeing this play out in public court right now. Yeah. You're watching the cycle of love bombers and now people have to answer for the times they were under the love bomb. They're like, well, you said you loved it. You said you wanted it. You said, well, yeah, I was not healthy. I was not well. And when you step out of that, it's like,
you get some help.
I didn't even mean that I loved that.
Yeah,
I didn't even know what I was saying. So it's a very vicious cycle. It maybe a phrase that sounds like this: you used to be awesome. Now I can barely stand you.
Yeah.
That's never okay to hear. It's never okay to say. And that's a big deal. So this idealize, devalue, discard cycle, it's a hallmark of narcissistic abuse. So if someone is walking through this, there's definitely hope. You're going to be able to get through it. You just need to start handling this for what it is. Like, if a partner keeps you trapped in a loop of false hope and self-blame, there's a better life for you. And I know if you're listening to this right now and your heart is heavy because you're starting to see some of the wool come down, the best part of your life is in front of you. It's going to take a lot of hard work to get out of some of this stuff, and it doesn't mean it's a deal breaker, but it just does mean you got to start to slowly inch your way back to understanding that you're worth more than that. It's not fair for anybody. Additional clues. Alex gave me these. Extreme need for control or dominance in conversations and decisions. Wow. This is where the ladies come into play. We've been around some ladies that will talk.
Some moms.
And the husband gets a bad rap for being a little weak, weedy guy, but the brother hasn't been able to talk in 4 years.
Yeah.
His opinions, she gets to talk about his opinions, what my husband does. And
they do that with their kids too.
Yeah. The narcissistic trickle down
just stop
is very, very, very hard to watch, because you can normally tell a kid is involved in a household like that by their demeanor. That's what we've noticed. But yeah, it's an extreme need for control, jealousy, very charming and charismatic publicly, privately hostile.
Yeah.
And that's a word that whoever's listening, you got to define how that lands with you, because hostile is just cruel.
If they're over the top in public with you and doing the love bombing in public, but then in private they are just destroying you emotionally.
Yeah, how is this still a thing, by the way? How did the people who do this not know that we're on to them? So when you see the clearly overcompensating couple that's like, oh my gosh, you're so sexy. Well, okay. I mean, cool. maybe once, but like the constancy of
In
that,
public,
to me,
yeah.
it's always like, if you're really saying that behind closed doors, y'all are kind of cruisy because someone feels valued, you're attracted to me. Like, you don't have to say that all the time. But when you see that, like in the social media stuff, it's the worst. This is the best. It's these dripping posts about a person. You're
Yeah.
like, I hope you said that to them next to you in bed.
Right.
Like the 17 people that are going to see your post, it's great that they know that. But if you really thought that, I hope the person actually knows it. So yeah, it's the overly charismatic outside, perfect vibe. And the moment you get in the car, it's the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde switch.
Yeah.
There's a better life. And why we're doing this is because there are still people who have accepted this type of life. And we're kind of passionate about never letting that happen to people if we can help it. So at least we can point to it. If someone feels invisible, destabilized, emotionally starved, but yet overly responsible for keeping the peace. Is that you? If that's you, you're involved in a potentially narcissistic web, and you got to work to get out.
What can you do if you see this in someone or know someone that's in this type of relationship or in it yourself? Like, what
That's
can
great.
you do to help?
That's a great question. So if you have someone you love, for instance, whoever you're going to share this episode with, that person, this is a great tool to share. But my favorite tactic is to remind people of health, not toxic. So if we sat down with someone recently and they kind of gave us some of the stats and we didn't point to how terrible the person was, what we did was just say, this is what health looks like. This is what real love looks like. Because this person went through this, and rather than point to all of how horrific
negative,
it was
yeah.
and who the person is, I understand that. This is what health looks like. And then you paint this picture and someone gets to see how far away they are from real love. It's going to do its own talking. So I've never been the kind of guy who's like, bro, you're married to a narcissist. You got to get out of that.
Right.
It's a heavy hand.
Yeah.
I'm not a doctor, not a therapist. I haven't been in the engine room of that person's soul to be able to say that.
Well, and anytime anyone says anything like that
Yeah.
about anything,
Yeah.
like giving someone like a straight, like blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
they usually don't take that like, oh, thanks for telling me that. I'm going to like go change that.
Right.
Usually they'll just double down and stop talking to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or distance themselves.
As they probably should. It is helpful. It is just helpful to point people to truth and light and life. And it's the most encouraging thing because it allows that person to make their own decision. If I make a decision for you, you're going to get right back in a pattern like that because you never knew what the problem was.
Right.
I can get you out. We can crisis rescue someone, which we've done many times. But unless they make that decision for themselves, it's just a matter of time before they go right back to the same guy because they never understood what happened. I got out of that guy. I got out of that relationship. 3 months later, they're with another dude who's exactly the same.
Yeah.
And they're like, I can't believe this. These guys keep finding me. You can't believe it? You can't believe it.
Not you?
Is it them finding you? Or are you looking for it? That's a tough reality check for some people to kind of internalize and deal with it. Here's what we'll end on this today. And I know it's a big deal, so we're not going to minimize any of it. And, we're going to offer help. And if you're in a relationship that is toxic, but this is great. So if you're single, look for some of these things. Find the template. Find the pattern. Look for some of these things before you're in too deep. And if you are already in too deep, it's never as bad as it could be. There's room to move, but it's hard to hear, but it's very true. Look at the relationships that you have in your life. They're exactly the way you want them to be. Because if you didn't want them to be like that, you'd make a change. So if that makes you uncomfortable, if you're in a relationship and you're like, I hate it, you don't hate it. You might want to get honest about that. If you hated it, you get out. And if you do hate it, what person do you need to become to make sure that that's real and you get out and you make a change? So I think if you don't do it, if it's one of those things we rationalize, we make excuses about it, we'll even tell ourselves a story that we're trapped, like we don't have any agency, none of that stuff is true. And here's our biggest cry and plea with people is, do you even know you're a shell of yourself?
Yeah.
This is how you start to gain some of your control back, some of your peace back. So if you have a relationship you love, we're going to pray for you and believe that it's going to get better and better, but be smart. Be smart with it. There's no reason with all the information available that people should be walking down this plank of deadly toxic patterns that you could easily avoid. So that's our submission today for this Lights On. I hope it's been helpful. Did you want to end on anything, Bub? Because that's a lot of content, it's a lot of information, but I feel like it's all pretty real if you're on the journey.
Yeah, it definitely is. I think just life is too short to be in miserable, abusive relationships. So any help that we can give or,
work for it.
Hope, yeah.
Fight for it.
Yeah.
You got to fight. It takes a lot of work to stay in a bad relationship. I would say it takes more work to stay in a bad relationship than it does work to build a great one. And that's
true.
I mean, for instance, it takes so much work to be an addict. The amount of stuff you have to do to maintain that lifestyle. And that's why it's so easy for me to get other people who deal with addiction to say, hey, bro, it's going to be easier than you think. Because look, do you know how hard you had to work to lie that many times, do that many things that you hate, burn that many bridges, and then manage a life on the outside of it? Like, you're pretty proficient at the wrong stuff.
Yeah.
What might you be able to do? So if you're in a relationship that's just frustrating and hard to deal with, you've worked hard to get there. What if you rechanneled some of that energy and you started digging into some of this stuff? Because you're worth it. Life is way too short. Relationship is the essence of life, and it's worth fighting for. So that's the Lights On submission for today. 50, episode 50, 50. Here's to 50 more. Oh, we broke an elbow. Roberto Duran, I love you, girl.
Love you.
Lights on.
Lights off.